What's going on, my friend? It's Jeff Newport from ChasingStrength.com. And in today's video, we are answering the question, what about the chest? In other words, how do you train chest with kettlebells? What's the best way? All right, well, let's dive in here. I don't know about you, but growing up for me, the manhood test lift, right? The one lift that measured your manhood above all else was always the bench press. How much you bench? Was always a common question. Yeah, it sounded like that because when I was really lifting, I lived in New Jersey, right? So the fact of the matter is the bench press is part of our meathead vernacular, right? Part of our culture. In fact, I just got this text message from a private client the other day. We'll flash it up here. You can see we got a laughter emoji from me there. He said in Tarzan voice, how much you bench? LOL. See you tomorrow, right? Now look, nobody here I think is going to argue that the bench press is a pretty darn good lift for building up your chest, right? The pecs, right? Now I know some hardcore bodybuilders would argue that, the dumbbell bench press is much better or the dumbbell incline press. But overall, general rule of thumb, bench press is what we typically think of when we think about training the chest, right? But what a lot of people don't know or may not be able to verbalize, and some of you guys watching this probably know from experience, the bench press is really good at destroying your shoulders if you use it too much, especially if you combine it with 1 gajillion push-ups, okay? Now worse, or maybe worse, is when you do too much chest work, right? I don't know if you think this is worse or not, but I think it's pretty bad, okay? Is when you do too much chest work and you actually look like you have a pair of breasts, okay? Not to be crass here, but this is a true story. One of my old friends took his shirt off and my jaw almost hit the ground. I was like, what the? Because he had literally done so much chest work. He looked like literally he had a pair of breasts. How many times can you say literally in the same sentence, Jeff? But no kidding. I mean, it was hard not to stare. I was embarrassed for the dude. But back to kettlebell work, right? There's not a whole lot you can do with kettlebell work that doesn't resemble a bench press that works your chest the way that most guys thinking about working your chest. But because we've been so conditioned by the bodybuilding subculture, right? We think that we always need to train the chest, right? Hence this email from Chris I got the other day. Chris from Germany. He said, last year I read your book, Kettlebell Strong, and used a plan for me out of this book. Then I started for several months to do the double kettlebell clean and press. Some weeks ago, I bought the program King Size Killer with the snatch to give me some variation. The big question I have now is, how do I get some impact on the chest muscles? The question is now both for clean and press and snatch, because after practicing almost 9 months of these training programs, I did not feel or see my chest growing. Can you recommend any additional exercises to these programs, or do I suffer from bad technique? Should I slightly lean back at the press? I think he means at the top of the press. So my response was essentially this. Great question, Chris. The chest is actually used in both the press and the snatch. In the press, it's the upper portion, the clavicular portion, which is used. And then the snatch, the pec actually stretches to decelerate the kettlebell so you can fix it overhead. However, they don't have the same effect on the chest as bench press, push-ups, or parallel dips. I would not lean back on the press. Great way to hurt your lower back if you don't know what you're doing. If you want more chest development, I recommend parallel dips. Now, what I didn't explain, which I think is worth pointing out here, is the following. Number one, why parallel dips? Well, parallel dips are great because they unload the spine from all the spinal loading found in kettlebell training. And that actually speeds up your recovery time and helps you train more, right? More frequently, do more work if you like that sort of thing. Plus, parallel dips do a nice job of building up your chest and triceps and even the anterior shoulder, right? Your front delt, if you're into that sort of thing. Now, I'm not. I just like to use them for elbow, shoulder, and spine health and how they make me feel overall, right? Especially from all the axial loading and posterior chain loading, so the loading of the spine, right, and the backside of the body that I do. So that's point number one I didn't tell him. Point number two is why I don't recommend a lot of horizontal pressing like bench press for guys our age. And by guys our age, I mean over 40, 50, and 60. I myself am frustrated to admit, right, that I am now over 50, right? So I am slowly approaching my mid-50s. Now, why do I not recommend a lot of horizontal bench pressing or a lot of horizontal pressing like the bench press for guys our age? That's because we spend so much time sitting that the following 5 things happen. Number one, your head hangs forward. Number two, your chest drops down as a result, and your shoulders slump or roll forward or round, right? Number three, your pecs, that's your chest muscles, they get short and tight. Number four, your arms internally rotate and your palms start facing backwards instead of your sides. And as a result, your lats get tight. And then number five, your pulling muscles of your back. So think about your rhomboids, right? Your lower traps, right? They get lengthened and then they become neurologically inhibited. Now, those 5 things, especially when combined, create a mess at your shoulder joints. And that means your shoulders don't function the way they're supposed to. And that's why guys get shoulder problems like rotator cuff impingements, strains, and even tears from too much bench press and too many push-ups. So if you're having shoulder problems, direct horizontal chest work like bench press and push-ups are actually the very last things you want to be doing. Instead, I recommend you go back to that 5-point list that I just gave you and you fix those things, all right? When you do fix those things, you will restore your proper shoulder function so you can partake of the old bench pressy and or the push-ups, right? If you want to, without anything nasty happening to you. So if you need help fixing those 5 points or anything nasty that's already happened to your shoulder, I'll leave a link to the program I personally use to keep my joints healthy in the video description below. And if you want to know the best way to incorporate parallel dips into your program so you can build your chest, I'll leave a link in the video description for a program that does that for you. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, click the like button, smash the subscribe button, share this with a friend, and tell me about your results using kettlebells or anything else for chest. What are your favorite chest exercises, kettlebells or otherwise? And have they given you shoulder issues in the past? Until next time, my friend, stay strong.